Hello everyone, my name is Akanksha Nani, and welcome to my YouTube channel Neuro Chat with AG. On this channel, I plan to cover topics that are closest to my heart and support the neurodiverse community. Topics related to neurodiversity, autism spectrum disorder, and more. On the channel, I will interview thought leaders, esteemed researchers, scientists, professors, doctors, and psychologists, seeking their views and updates on their latest work, research, etc. I will also chat with parents of neurodiverse kids and adults and talk about experiences of neurodiverse individuals. Miss Kate Kahle is a leading voice in the neurodiversity movement, dedicated to transforming societal perceptions of autism and advocating for the inclusion and empowerment of autistic individuals. With a career spanning several years, Kate has established herself as a respected speaker, writer, and consultant, known for her innovative and compassionate approach to fostering understanding and acceptance of autism. Miss Kate is currently in law school at Georgetown University Law Center and has earned her bachelor's degree in political science from Austin College. In her free time, she enjoys knitting, playing music, and reading. As an autistic woman, Miss Kate is an advocate for autism acceptance. She hopes to help autistic people love and accept themselves, as well as promote acceptance of people with autism as individuals with a broad range of systems and capabilities who are able to contribute meaningfully to their communities. Miss Kate, welcome and thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Could you share a bit about your personal journey and when you were
Of course.
diagnosed?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. When I got to high school, I was really having a very hard time fitting in with my peers, which caused a lot of anxiety for me. My parents really noticed the anxiety that I was facing and how upset that I was, and took me to a doctor for diagnosis. At that time, I think they believed that I had clinical anxiety and didn't anticipate that I would be diagnosed with autism. But when I was diagnosed with autism, it was something that really made sense and brought a lot of clarity to the things that I'd been experiencing.
And how did your life change after the diagnosis? Why did you mask?
Sorry, I had a strong initial negative reaction to being diagnosed with autism at 15. But as I learned more about autism and grew to accept myself, I began to understand that a diagnosis is actually a positive thing. I'd been masking my whole life, even before my diagnosis, because I knew that I was somehow different from other people. And like any person, I had a desire to fit in and be understood by my peers. I think when you have autism, it can feel like there's something wrong with you, particularly before your diagnosis. I think that I really felt that I had a hard time connecting with other people and I was different in some way, but didn't know how. And being diagnosed with autism was something that really allowed me to understand myself and move forward in a positive direction in my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that you talked about accepting yourself and kind of understanding the strengths that you have too, because often people just look at the negatives, especially I think many parents might. That's not all there is to it. In fact, there's much more than that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different symptoms that different people can face. And I think that it's natural when yourself or your child is diagnosed with something that is seen as a disease to approach that with fear and apprehension. But I think with learning and the acceptance that I'm trying to promote, we can all realize that there is a lot more to autism.
Yeah, thank you. And what are your views on early intervention for children on the spectrum? And could you relate this to your personal experiences?
Mhm. So I know that early intervention is something that has been a hot topic in recent years. And I think that people are really searching for a black and white answer to this question. But the reality is that every single person with autism is a unique person with unique medical needs. I think for parents, especially for parents of young children diagnosed with autism, that diagnosis can be something that's really overwhelming. Ultimately, the decision about whether or not to engage in early childhood intervention should be a decision that takes place between parents and family members and doctors to suit individual needs of an autistic child. I know that there's been a lot of controversy recently with applied behavioral analysis or ABA therapy for children. I was not personally involved in ABA by the time that I was diagnosed with autism. I was 15 years old, and I know that typically ABA can be performed on adults and children, but typically it's performed on younger children. And I know that lots of autistic people who have been involved in it have come out against it because they feel that there's an emphasis on punishment and a goal to minimize or eliminate autistic behaviors to make people with autism more palatable to neurotypical people. I think that ABA therapy providers really believe in the therapy that they provide, and they've heard these concerns from autistic adults and people who have been involved in ABA therapy as kids and have really made strides to adapt the therapy to meet the concerns that people have. I think that parents who are considering early childhood intervention or ABA for their kids should really do their own research and consult with the therapists that they might utilize. Also, their doctors and other experts, and potentially autistic adults about their concerns when deciding what treatment is right for their child.
That was a really great answer, and that's a really great solution to a very kind of controversial topic right now. Why autism is often missed in women and girls. And I know this is your TED Talk topic, but could you share anything incremental to what you covered in the TED Talk?
So I think that this is a topic that is really difficult to understand because there's not one reason that autism is missed in women and girls. There's a confluence of several different factors that make it a difficult topic to address. So as I discussed in my TED Talk, there's lower awareness of women and girls with autism because experiences that people have in real life with autistic people and that they might have with the media are generally with men and boys. But there's also the factor that most clinical studies have historically been done on boys, and therefore the autistic traits that we know about in a clinical setting are the manifestations that autism can have in boys. Another factor that makes this a complicated issue is that the actual occurrence of autism has been studied, and it seems that it is lower. There's a lower actual occurrence in women and girls than in men and boys. Yeah, this is further complicated by the fact that studies have shown that there's a lower actual occurrence of autism in women and girls than in men and boys. And I think that this explains lower awareness if there's lower actual occurrence. But I think that women and girls still deserve proper diagnosis and proper awareness.
There's such a huge gap in terms of the number of autistic women and girls that study shows are actually there compared to what have actually been diagnosed, who have actually been diagnosed with. And how do you think this issue can be combated?
Well, I think the good news is that since my TED Talk came out in 2021, the diagnosis rates for autism, and particularly in women and girls, have increased. I think that this increase has led to a lot of fear and anxiety about higher actual prevalence of autism. But I really think that a higher level of awareness that autism can exist in women and girls from parents and from childhood educators is something that has led to a better rate of diagnosis for women and girls. And I think that that awareness is exactly what I'm trying to promote and what's going to close this gap.
Yeah, and one thing I was really curious about was the gap in education and within the often extra challenges that those individuals who are both autistic and women will have to face.
Yeah, so I think at the confluence of autism and gender, both women and men face unique challenges. I think that women and men face unique challenges in society, and the same is true for autistic men and women. So I wouldn't say that the challenges that women face are necessarily extra, but I would say that they are somewhat different. Society expects women to be naturally socially adept and accommodating of others. And that can be something that's very hard for autistic people who have rigid expectations of others or routines or standards. It can be really hard for autistic women to meet those expectations of women in society. And I think that struggling to meet society's expectations of you can lead you to feel like you're broken. Every single person in the world wants to connect with others. And I think that that desire to connect with others coupled with a feeling that you're broken can lead to strong masking in an effort to better connect with your peers. I think that being bullied or left out can make people with autism really feel like fish out of water. And it can be especially hard for women and girls where friendship groups are particularly emphasized, especially in adolescence. And I think that, the lack of friendships, bullying, and the lack of presence of those friendship groups can really lead to secondary conditions like anxiety and depression in autistic teen girls.
Independence or interdependence, so leaving home for the first time and going to do something on your own, how has that experience been for you?
Yeah, when I graduated high school, I had really good grades and I wanted to go to college and be independent, but I didn't really feel ready to be completely separated from my family. And I wanted to be part of a smaller community where I could really feel like I was a part of things. So I chose to go to Austin College in Sherman, Texas, which is a small college that's about an hour away from my family. I felt that being a short distance from home really allowed me to build independence at college, but still have access to my support system when I needed it. I also found that being a part of a smaller campus community allowed me to really get integrated into the community on campus. And I really loved my small college experience. I felt that the education that I got was top notch, and I was able to build relationships with professors and other students that were extremely valuable. And I think that's something that I might have struggled with had I chosen to attend a larger university before I was ready. By the time I graduated college, I felt really confident to move to a new city, and I'm proud of the community that I've built for myself in DC. I would encourage anybody with autism who doesn't feel quite ready to leave home entirely or who is really struggling with their choice of where to go to listen to their gut. I think that picking the college that was right for me was hugely influential in helping me reach my potential. And if I had done too much before I was ready, I may not have been able to continue.
Yeah. And what resources or support systems have been most helpful for you? And what should be done for girls with autism?
Yeah, I think autism acceptance is something that is beneficial for everyone in the autism community, but especially for women and girls. I think the recognition of why somebody might act differently than others or have unique traits can really help autistic women and girls feel accepted instead of like an other in a group of people. I also think that women and girls who feel that they struggle to be understood should reach out and form community with one another. Lots of high schools and colleges are moving in the right direction by having disability societies or neurodiverse student organizations to help people meet one another and to help allies really learn more about neurodiversity.
Awesome. And to kind of switch towards law, what are some of the key legal and policy changes you see in your field today? And how do you propose these challenges can be addressed through research and legislative change?
Yeah, I think there's a concerning trend of police violence towards autistic people. And I know that I've spoken about women and girls, but this is a challenge that mainly faces Black boys and men with lower communication abilities. This March, a boy named Ryan Gaynor was shot and killed by the police outside of his home when his family called for help with a meltdown. And I think this tragic event is just one of the most recent examples of how the intersection of gender, race, and disability can increase potential for a negative or even deadly encounter with the criminal justice system. This is a very difficult issue to address due to low understanding among law enforcement about autism and other developmental disabilities. I also think, on the other hand, being a police officer is an extremely dangerous job, and officers understandably are fearful when a person is unable or seems unwilling to comply with the directives that they're given. I think that policies to increase awareness of autism in general by the police is something that's promising, but I especially would promote methods that allow people with autism and their families to effectively communicate their disability status in potentially volatile situations with the police. And Akansh, I know that you've worked on something similar with this, so if you'd like to share that at this time, I think that would be great.
Thank you. So
Mhm.
so I volunteer at a local community organization called Pragnya, and they have these events called Friends. So first responders neurodiversity support, where we go to local police departments, have events that our individuals can come and meet the police. So the police can understand what stimming is, things like that, see it firsthand, talk to the individuals, see what their worries are, and our individuals can also get to know their local police officers. And also sometimes we've also tell our local police departments about how important these events are and why they're necessary. So I think what you just talked about is such a huge issue, and it's important to do whatever we can to make it better.
Yeah, well, thanks for being involved and helping to combat this issue. I think that sounds like a great program.
And what role do you believe universities and academic researchers should play in shaping public policy?
Yeah, I think science-based policy is something that is extremely important. However, when it comes to autism, a lot of the fear and misinformation comes from studies that were not conducted properly or not able to be replicated. And a lot also comes from studies where the finding was misconstrued or communicated in a way that was misleading. And of course, I'm speaking about many studies, but particularly the famous vaccines cause autism studies by Andrew Wakefield, both of which fraudulently misrepresented data and ignored correlation rather than causation. The fear from that study still lingers, even though, of course, we now know that early signs of autism in children are often noticed around the same time that a child would receive a vaccine. And therefore, this is correlation and not causation. And so while scientific studies and findings are important and exciting, I think that researchers and universities owe verification of results and clarity and accuracy when describing their results to the autistic community before advocating that results should be put into practice through public policy.
What emerging trends in law, public policy, and health policy do you find most promising?
I think there's a huge trend towards novel studies, and great work is being done to determine what factors actually do lead to autism and whether they're correlated or whether they're causing autism or simply correlated. And I think that's a fantastic thing for combating the fear-mongering that is so prevalent in the community, especially considering the difficulty of determining what causes autism.
Personal questions. So, what advice would you give to students and young researchers who want to pursue a career at the intersection of law, public policy, and health policy?
Yeah, I think that any young person or student looking to start a career should really follow their interests and passions. I think that that is something that allows you to work hard and be invested in your work, but also other people can see that and are very willing to help you. I would advise students that there are more people willing to help you than you think. And if you reach out, not everyone will be receptive to you, but most people will. And I think that you particularly have done a great job. You have had huge success getting people to come on this YouTube channel. And I've been so impressed with the communication that you've had with me and your confidence in reaching out to me to come be on this channel. So I would really encourage people to reach out to individuals in their community, which is easier now than ever with the internet. And I would advise that people are very willing to help you get started.
Is there anything you wish more people understood about autism and neurodiversity?
Yeah, I think that a greater understanding of the broad spectrum that autism can present is something I wish more people understood. I think a lot of autistic people like me with a higher ability to communicate and lower support needs try to set themselves apart from people who might have higher support needs and lower ability to communicate. I know that the label of Asperger's is something that existed solely to try to draw that distinction, even though autism is something that is the same diagnosis across the board. I think that high support needs people deserve the support of their families and friends, but also of other autistic individuals. And I hope that we can all build a sense of community as people diagnosed with a single disorder.
What message would you like to share with other families and individuals affected by autism?
Yeah, I think that a diagnosis of autism can understandably produce a lot of feelings of anxiety. I know that it did for me when I was diagnosed, and it does for the families of lots of children diagnosed with autism. I would encourage families and individuals to try to push past those feelings and anxiety and to really learn more about autism. I think a realization that your family member or yourself is living with autism I think a realization that you or your family member had autism before they were diagnosed can help a diagnosis be viewed positively. From that perspective, I think a diagnosis can be seen as something that helps yourself or your family member understand and access the resources and support that they need to reach their full potential.
Well, Miss Kate, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. And I just want to congratulate you again for going to Georgetown, getting your degree. I think, you have an amazing trajectory right now. And I wish you all the very best with your JD and all of the autism advocacy initiatives.
Yes, thank you so much. And I was thrilled to come on here today, and I'm excited to support your work raising awareness here on your YouTube channel. I think what you're doing is fantastic, so keep up the good work.